The flight was supposed to be a celebration. A well-respected black CEO had finally found time to take a trip with his 2 children after months of back-to-back board meetings and late nights at the office. He wanted this journey to be special, so he booked first-class seats, ensuring his kids could experience the comfort he had worked so hard to earn. But the moment they stepped onto the plane, everything began to shift. The flight attendants exchanged uncertain glances. Passengers whispered, and within minutes, the unimaginable happened. The CEO's children, neatly dressed and smiling with excitement, were told their seats did not belong to them. Confused, the CEO watched as the crew insisted his kids move, as if their presence in first class was some kind of mistake. His heart sank, not just from the humiliation, but from the pain of watching his children's joy crumble. What the airline staff didn't realize was who they were dealing with. This was no ordinary passenger quietly accepting injustice. With calm but firm determination, the CEO began to act, and within just 10 minutes, the entire balance of power shifted in a way no one on that flight could have predicted. But how exactly did he turn the tables? As the murmurs in the cabin grew louder, the CEO sat back, his mind racing. He wasn't just any man in a suit. He was a self-made leader who had built a global company from the ground up, a man who had faced prejudice and setbacks before, but never in front of his own children. This was different. Watching their confused faces as the flight attendants spoke down to them cut deeper than any boardroom battle. He thought back to the years of sacrifice that had brought him here. From growing up in a small neighborhood where opportunities were scarce, to becoming the youngest executive in his industry, every step had been earned through resilience. Now, in the quiet tension of the plane, he realized this was not just about a pair of seats. It was about dignity, respect, and teaching his children to stand tall in the face of unfair treatment. The crew seemed unaware of his influence. To them, he was just another passenger being difficult. But beneath his calm expression, strategy was already forming. He had contacts at the highest levels of the airline industry, allies who respected his name and his power, and as the minutes ticked by, he prepared to make a call that would shake the very company behind this flight. The cabin settled into an uneasy quiet, though the tension could be felt in every corner. Some passengers glanced toward the family with sympathy, while others looked away, pretending not to notice. The CEO's children sat silently, unsure of what to say, their excitement replaced by nervous glances. To them, this was just a confusing moment, but to their father, it was far more a reminder that even success and status couldn't always shield them from unfair treatment. The crew pressed on, speaking in clipped tones, insisting that other passengers were waiting for the seats. The implication was clear, but no one dared say it aloud. From the back of the plane, a man muttered under his breath, questioning why kids like them were in first class in the first place. The CEO heard it, but he didn't react, not yet. He knew when to hold silence, and when to let his actions speak louder. Meanwhile, the airline staff whispered among themselves, trying to confirm their decision with the supervisor. Every minute dragged, heightening the unease. What they didn't realize was that the CEO's assistant, boarding separately, had already noticed the unfolding situation and begun sending quiet messages. If the airline thought this would pass unnoticed, they were in for a sudden shock. The atmosphere inside the plane grew heavier with every passing minute. The CEO's children shifted uncomfortably in their seats, glancing at their father for reassurance. He remained calm, his voice steady, but his eyes carried a fire that only a few in the cabin could read. The flight attendants, caught between procedure and pride, doubled down on their stance, insisting the seats had been mistakenly assigned. Each word felt like fuel on a growing fire. From across the aisle, a few passengers began recording quietly, sensing that something bigger was unfolding. A young woman whispered to her husband, recognizing the man at the center of the storm. Others still assumed he was just another passenger refusing to follow rules. But beneath the surface, a powerful shift was beginning to take place. The CEO's assistant, still on the ground, had reached out to contacts who wasted no time escalating the issue. Within moments, executives at the airline's headquarters were notified, though the cabin crew remained unaware of the storm brewing above their heads. Inside the plane, time seemed to slow. The children's disappointment, the passengers' unease, the staff's stubbornness all collided in a silence so sharp it was almost unbearable. The CEO finally leaned forward, pulled out his phone, and began to dial. Every eye turned toward him, waiting for what would happen next. The phone barely rang twice before someone answered on the other end. The CEO's tone was calm but carried a weight that made his children sit up straighter. Passengers nearby leaned in, pretending not to listen, but every word seemed to hang in the air. He wasn't just calling for help, he was putting the airline on notice. As he spoke quietly, another twist unfolded. A senior crew member, alerted by the commotion, finally stepped into first class. Instead of resolving the issue, she sided firmly with her staff, repeating that the children would need to leave their seats. Her words struck like a blow, confirming that this was no simple mistake, it was a decision being defended, even as tension rose higher. At that moment, the CEO's assistant sent him a message that changed everything. Not only had the airline's executives been alerted, but news of the incident had already reached a journalist who followed his company closely. What began as a confrontation on a plane was moments away from becoming a story that could explode across headlines. The CEO lowered his phone slowly, his gaze steady on the crew who still stood waiting for compliance. The silence was crushing, and everyone knew the next move he made could redefine the entire flight. The CEO finally rose from his seat, his calm presence commanding more attention than if he had raised his voice. He looked directly at the senior crew member and, with quiet authority, explained who he was and what company he led. The mention of his name sent ripples through the cabins. Several passengers gasped, recognizing him instantly. The crew's confidence faltered, but it was already too late. His phone buzzed again, and this time it was a direct call from an airline executive. The message was clear. The treatment of his family was unacceptable, and immediate steps would be taken. The attendants stood frozen as the CEO was assured, over speaker, that his children would remain in their seats and that the matter would be escalated all the way to the top. Passengers who had been silent broke into applause, some relieved, others amazed at the sudden shift in power. The crew had no choice but to back down, their earlier certainty replaced by unease. But just as the tension began to settle, the unexpected twist arrived. The CEO revealed that he wasn't only a loyal customer, his company was in final talks to sign a multi-million-dollar partnership with this very airline. With a measured smile, he declared those talks officially over. The silence that followed was absolute, as everyone realized the true cost of the airline's mistake. The rest of the flight passed in a very different atmosphere. The CEO's children, still shaken, leaned against their father as he reassured them with quiet words. Other passengers, who had watched the scene unfold, now looked at the family with admiration. Some even stopped by to thank him for standing his ground, saying he had spoken for many who had faced similar moments of disrespect, but lacked the power to respond. The crew, humbled and silent, did their best to serve without drawing attention. Though the weight of what had happened lingered in every movement, the CEO, however, chose not to dwell on anger. Instead, he used the moment to teach his children a lesson that dignity isn't handed to you, it's defended, and respect must be demanded when it's denied. By the time the plane landed, messages from across the business world had already reached him. Executives, investors, and even competitors praised the way he had handled the situation. The airline, now facing public scrutiny, scrambled to control the fallout. But the damage had been done. For the CEO, it was never about revenge. It was about showing his kids, and everyone watching, that real leadership means standing firm when it matters most. And in that, he truly destroyed the airline without raising his voice.